Hi, I'm Amanda, and this is the story of how my mom made sure there wasn't a seat for me at her birthday party. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally. It was the first time I'd been home in 2 years. I landed, I showed up, and I still wasn't counted. I'd flown in from Portland, 2 layovers, a rerouted connection, and a $400 bakery box balanced on my lap because I refused to check it. Inside was a lemon honey layer cake I'd made myself, the same kind Mom used to request before Rachel became the easy child. Before the conversations at dinner started revolving around job titles, wedding venues, and which side of the family had better genes. Spoiler, not mine. The house was full. Laughter spilled out of the windows like perfume. Someone had hired a saxophonist, which felt absurdly theatrical for a woman who once said, "Birthdays are just marketing for insecurity." I stood on the porch, cake box in hand, and knocked. Mom opened the door in a pearl pink sweater set, her makeup precise, her hair curled like a pageant judge. Her smile was big, too big. "Oh," she said, "Amanda, you came." I blinked. "Yeah," I said I would. She leaned in for a half hug, the kind where only your shoulders touch. "Your flight must have been awful," she added, already turning. "Well, come in, but just don't be upset, okay? We weren't sure you'd actually make it." I stepped inside. "What do you mean?" Mom paused by the kitchen island where Rachel was placing champagne flutes like she was setting a table at a country club gala. "We only set the table for 10, Mom said. "You know how tricky seating charts can be." I stood there, cake in hand. A stupid part of me thought she might say, "But we'll squeeze you in," or "I'll have them add a chair." She didn't. Instead, she gestured vaguely toward the kitchen nook. "We put a stool over there. You can sit by the coffee machine. It's quieter anyway. You always like quiet." Rachel didn't even look up. "That cake's gonna melt," she muttered. "I baked this." "Oh." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That's sweet." The next 15 minutes were a blur of missed eye contact and murmured hellos. I'd been given the wrong time, apparently. People were already mid-appetizer. My name wasn't on the place cards. My gift was swept into a pile without a second glance. Then came the moment. It was so small, so stupid. Mom was giving a toast. "To family," she said. "To the people who always show up." People clinked glasses, Rachel beamed. Someone shouted, "Amen," and I just sat there, alone, on a stool, with a slice of my own cake on a napkin. After dinner, I waited. Maybe Mom would come over. Maybe she'd hug me or ask about my life or even pretend to be interested in something beyond Rachel's new marketing job. She didn't. Instead, as she opened gifts, she held up a scarf from Rachel and said, "She always knows just what I need." I stood up, quietly. "Where are you going?" Rachel asked, not because she cared, just loud enough for others to hear. I held her gaze. "I wasn't really here, remember?" And I left. No one followed. No one called. Not that night. Not the next morning. I checked into a budget motel and stared at the cake box still half full on the passenger seat. That was the night I stopped trying to earn my seat and started building my own damn table. The motel room smelled like old coffee and bleach, and the only light came from a crooked lamp with a flickering bulb. I didn't unpack. I didn't cry. I just sat there fully dressed, hands folded in my lap like I was still waiting for permission to speak. That was the thing about growing up with a mother like mine. Silence was a skill, not a flaw, a survival tool. She never yelled. She never hit. She didn't have to. She made you question whether your discomfort was your own fault. When we were kids, Rachel used to get these spontaneous bursts of praise from Mom. A drawing, a B- math quiz, an outfit she pulled together from the clearance rack. Every little thing was met with, "See, she's got taste. She's got potential." I once came home beaming with a hand-illustrated book I made for a third-grade project. I'd stayed up 2 nights coloring it with watercolor pens and gluing in real pressed leaves. Mom glanced at it for half a second. "You misspelled autumn on the title," she said, sipping tea. She didn't even crack the cover. Rachel once painted 3 stripes on a paper plate and called it abstract. Mom put it on the fridge for 2 weeks and took a photo of it next to her wine glass like it was a Sotheby's feature. The truth hit early. There was no room in our house for 2 daughters with needs. One got approval. The other got framed as dramatic. "You're so sensitive, Amanda," Mom would whisper, always with a smile. "Don't twist my words. I was just being honest." "You know Rachel doesn't try to outshine anyone, right?" She's just naturally charming. Charming. That word followed her around like perfume, soft, sweet, and just strong enough to choke you if you stood too close. A week after the birthday incident, I got a message from Rachel. Rachel, hey, Mom feels bad. She didn't mean to exclude you. Things were just hectic. I stared at the screen, not angry, not even surprised. Me, she told me to sit next to the Keurig. Rachel, you're always so literal. Look, she was nervous about the guest list. There were important people there. Important. As if I wasn't blood. As if DNA came with an asterisk. I typed something, deleted it, then just sent, me. Tell her I'm fine. She doesn't need to apologize. Rachel, that's not what I said. 3 days later, Mom emailed me directly. The subject line read, catching up. Inside was a 3-sentence message. Amanda, sorry about the mix-up with the table. I didn't realize you were flying in for real. Hope the cake turned out okay. Maybe next time we'll coordinate better. Love, Mom. There it was. Neat, clean, non-apology. The kind that left no fingerprints, no ownership, no warmth. Just a gentle push back into the margins. The cake? She called it the cake. The thing I spent 12 hours baking and flying across the country with, that cake? My phone buzzed again. Another email. From Rachel. Subject, BTW. Mom's trying. Just cut her some slack. You always take things too personally. Not everyone gets your intensity. Love you. I laughed out loud, right there in the motel room, because if I didn't laugh, I might scream. That word again. Intensity. That's what they called it when I had standards, when I asked for honesty, when I remembered too much of what they pretended to forget. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled out the brown envelope I kept in my duffel. Inside were the flyers for a regional pastry competition. Not big, not televised, just enough to get seen by scouts if you played it right. The submission fee was $800. I had $327 in my account. That night, I called Mom. Hi, sweetheart, she said, cheery. I was just thinking of you. I saw a lemon tart on a magazine cover and thought, Amanda could probably do that with her eyes closed. I swallowed hard. I need to ask you for something, I said. Pause. Just half a beat. What's going on? There's this competition, regional showcase. Small, but kind of a gateway thing. I made it through the screening round, but there's a fee. And the materials cost more than I expected. You need money. A statement, not a question, I exhaled. Yes. Another pause. You know your sister's still job hunting, right? I'm not asking for much, just enough to... Amanda, her voice softened, that fake soft. You've always been the creative one, but sometimes you have to be realistic. I'm not asking you to pay for a dream, just a chance. She sighed. I just don't think it's the right time to be gambling on things, not with the economy. There it was again, that gentle, weaponized reasonableness. I see, I said. You're not upset, are you? No, I'm just learning to stop expecting things you've never offered. Click. I stared at the brown envelope. I didn't tear it up. I didn't cry. Instead, I opened my laptop and started writing. A pitch, a proposal, a cold email to every independent sponsor, pastry fund, and under-the-radar grant I could Google in a 2-hour window. And then I called Marcy, my old friend from culinary school. Girl, I was wondering when you'd call, she said. You ready to finally let the world see what's been cooking in that chaotic brain of yours? I need help, I said. That's what friends are for. I'm in. What's the plan? That night, we drew up a timeline. That night, I stopped begging for a seat and started building something bigger. I didn't tell my family I was entering the competition, not because I wanted to be mysterious, not because I thought it would make a good story, but because I already knew the 2 responses they'd offer. Rachel would say I was being impulsive again, and Mom would lower her voice and murmur, well, just, if you fail, don't mention our name. So I didn't. The application process was brutal. Forms, proof of residency, ingredient lists, photos of plated desserts on neutral-toned backgrounds, a full business plan as if I were pitching to investors, not judges in hairnets. I borrowed Marcy's tiny kitchen, rearranged everything, and worked until 2 a.m. that first week just practicing textures. There were nights I thought my hands would cramp shut from piping lemon mousse, but I kept going, because this wasn't about a ribbon or a title. This was about being seen. The night I got the email, finalist, see you in Denver. I didn't celebrate, not right away. I sat in silence, staring at the screen. Then I opened my phone. There was a text from Mom. Do you think you could Venmo Rachel $100? She's had a rough week. I almost laughed. I had $112 to my name, and my own mother was asking me to fund the golden child's rough week. I replied, Sorry, I'm broke too. She read it. No reply. Marcy leaned against the kitchen counter, arms folded, watching me carefully. You going to tell them? No point. You want them to know. Don't lie. I swallowed. I want them to find out without me saying a word. She raised an eyebrow. So you want to succeed, and then let them choke on it. I smiled, just barely. Something like that. 2 weeks later, I boarded a 5 a.m. bus to Denver with one duffel bag, 2 coolers of ingredients, and a printed ticket that cost me the last of my freelance check. No entourage, no cheering squad, just me and an overpacked thermos of Earl Grey. And you know what I kept thinking about? Not the techniques, not the judges, but the birthday party, that kitchen stool, the way no one blinked when I stood up and walked out, the way Rachel laughed and said, That cake's gonna melt. The pastry challenge was divided into 3 rounds: classic technique, ingredient improv, signature story bake. Each contestant had their own station, like a cooking show, but without the glossy camera angles. No stylists, no pre-chopped mise en place. We were sweating under fluorescents with dull knives and borrowed whisks, and it was glorious. In round 1, we made pâté à choux. I passed. Flawless rise, crisp shell. The judge, a pastry chef with a voice like gravel, nodded once. Balanced. Round 2, we were handed 5 mystery ingredients in a basket: hazelnuts, orange zest, turmeric, white chocolate, and cardamom. My hands shook a little, but I looked down, breathed, and started grinding the turmeric into a sugar crust. What came out of the oven looked like nothing I'd ever made before, but it tasted like a war drum wrapped in velvet. They loved it. Then came round 3. We were given one prompt: bake your origin. No explanation, no guide. Just tell us who you are using flour, butter, and heat. My mind went blank. I froze. Everyone around me was scribbling recipes, whispering to themselves. I stood still, staring at the bench like it had betrayed me. Then I saw it. In the corner of the prep room, there was a lemon. That was it. I reached for the lemon, pulled out honey from my cooler, and started working. A lemon honey tart. But not just any tart. One with a burnt sugar top, crackable like a creme brulee. Underneath, lemon custard. Tart, unapologetic. Crust laced with Earl Grey because I grew up steeped in things I was never allowed to say. I plated it with a single candied peel strip. At the base of the dish, I placed a hand-cut white chocolate disc stenciled with a number, 11. The number of guests at my mother's birthday party. The number of people who mattered. The number I wasn't. When the judge tasted it, he didn't speak. He just nodded, set the fork down, and said, That's not dessert, that's a declaration. That night, I walked back to the motel barefoot. I carried my shoes in one hand and the judge's words in the other. I didn't win that night, not officially. But 2 days later, I got an email from one of the guest panelists, a well-known independent food scout. The subject line read, We saw you. They offered me a spot in their annual tasting tour, an invite-only, low-budget, high-visibility circuit through 5 states. Hidden Chefs, they called it, 1-month trial. You bring your flavors, we bring the room. I stared at that screen until it blurred. Then I picked up the phone. Mom? I said when she answered. I'm going on tour. Pause. Tour? A food tour, culinary showcase. Another pause. She chuckled softly. Like a truck thing? No, it's a real thing. 5 cities. They chose me. Silence. Well, she finally said, just don't embarrass yourself, and if they ask where you're from, I'll say Portland, I said. I hung up before she could say anything else. That was the last time I asked for her approval. The first tasting event was in Austin, a converted warehouse lit with pendant bulbs and scattered reclaimed wood benches, exposed brick, vegan cocktails, and influencers pretending not to take selfies. I had one station, one apron, one dish. The menu listed it simply as Burnt Sugar Lemon Tart by Amanda S. Crack the shell, then tell us what it reminds you of. The first person to try it was a woman in a velvet pantsuit who said, Oh my God, this tastes like Spite and Healing had a baby. Someone laughed. Someone else asked if they could film me cracking the top again. By the end of the night, I had 4 write-ups on Instagram, 2 food bloggers tagging me, and a message from the host. Houston's asking about you already. You ready to double your station next week? I didn't tell Mom, but apparently someone else did. 3 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something about the area code made my thumb pause. I answered, "Hello?" It was Rachel. Of course it was. "Hey, so, random, but did you make some kind of cake that's going viral?" I let the silence sit long enough to sting. Maybe. Because Mom's freaking out. One of her clients sent her a TikTok and was like, "Isn't this your daughter?" And it's you. Well, you're tart. But you. Sort of. I could hear her chewing on her lip. Nervous. Rachel didn't like being surprised unless she was the one orchestrating it. Why's Mom freaking out? She says you didn't tell her. She's embarrassed. Why would she be embarrassed? I asked, leaning against the motel wall, looking out at the parking lot. I don't know. She says it's a little dramatic. There's no video of me speaking. No, but the caption says, "Inspired by being the forgotten daughter." I smiled. Did it say Amanda Smith, forgotten daughter? No, but Mom says people will connect the dots. That's not my problem. Rachel sighed. I'm just saying maybe let her in on things next time. Like she let me sit next to the Keurig at her birthday? Silence. Then, she didn't mean it like that. She never does. The next day, I opened my inbox to find a new email. Subject, "Proud of you," from Mom. The message was short. "Amanda, I had no idea you were working on something so serious. I wish you'd shared. I would have supported you if I'd known it was this level. Keep going. This could be big. Love, Mom." I stared at it for a long time. Not, "I'm sorry," not, "I see you now." Just, if I'd known it was worth it. Because that's what it came down to. Support, in her world, was transactional. She could be warm if there was value. She could be proud if you won. The tour moved on. Houston, Phoenix, Santa Fe, every city, more buzz, more stories. People asked where I trained. I said Portland kitchens, mostly. They asked about my inspiration, and I told them. The feeling of being almost loved, the taste of trying to be good enough and still being late to dinner. They nodded. Sometimes they cried, and every time they cracked that sugar top, they looked up at me the same way. Like they knew what it was to be forgotten by someone who was supposed to remember. By stop 4, the tour director called me into her office, a shared Airbnb living room lit by laptop glow. "You've got a profile piece coming out next week," she said. "Nothing huge, but enough to matter. Online feature. They're calling it Bitterness, Baked Beautiful." "You okay with that title?" "I've been called worse," I said. She smiled. "Any family you want us to credit? Background, lineage, mentors?" I paused. Then, "You can list it as self-taught." "Nothing else?" "No." When the article dropped, it was subtle, tasteful, a clean headshot, a pull quote in the middle. "I used to want a seat at the table. Now I set my own and pick the guests." Amanda S. Rachel texted the next morning. "Rachel, saw the article. It's everywhere. Even Dad reposted it. Mom, doesn't know what to say." Me. "She never does." Rachel, "She's asking if she can come to one of the shows." That made me pause. Me. "Why?" Rachel, "She says she wants to see what you've built." I waited, then wrote. Me. "Let me think about it." I didn't say no because some invitations deserve to come late, and some people need to sit in the audience before they can be asked to speak. The invitation arrived in the form of a phone call from Rachel. Again. I almost didn't answer, but part of me, some tired muscle memory still trying to believe people could change, picked up anyway. "Hey," she said. Her voice was soft. Not her usual tight-cheeked performance voice, not the one she used when Mom was nearby. This was quieter, unpracticed. "Hi." There was a pause. "I know this is weird," she said, "but Mom wants to host a family dinner. She said she wants you there." I blinked. "A dinner?" "Yeah, like at the house, not a party, not a thing, just us. She wants to talk. She asked me to ask you." There was something almost cautious in her tone, like she was handling glass that had already been dropped once. "What exactly does she want to talk about?" I asked. Rachel hesitated. She didn't say, but Amanda, she's been different lately. Since when? Since my name hit a blog? Since people started recognizing me for what she ignored? She brought out the lemon dishes. That's how I knew it was real. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was exactly like my mother. She didn't apologize. She plated. The night of the dinner, I wore a simple black dress. Not glamorous, not meek. Clean lines, matte fabric. The kind of outfit you wore when you knew people were watching for signs of ego, of failure, of change. I parked 2 blocks away. Not because I was trying to be dramatic, but because I didn't want to feel like I was arriving. I wanted to feel like I was observing. When I reached the door, it opened before I could knock. Mom stood there, lipstick too perfect, eyes a little too bright. "Amanda," she said. "Mom." There was a silence that stretched like taffy, just long enough to mean something, just short enough to deny it. "You look lovely," she said. "Thanks." She stepped aside. "Come in, everyone's in the dining room." Everyone. The word caught in my throat. The table was set for 11, not 10, not 10 with an apology. 11, on purpose. At the head of the table was a name card that simply read Amanda. The food was plated: lemon chicken, roasted potatoes, arugula salad with a citrus vinaigrette. But it wasn't the food that caught me. It was the centerpiece. A large glass dish in the middle of the table holding a cracked sugar tart. Burnt edges, glazed lemon slices on top. My tart, or at least her version of it. Rachel cleared her throat. "Mom made it herself." I looked at her. "Really?" Mom smiled. "I followed the recipe from the article." "You've read it?" "Of course," she said too quickly. "It was lovely." "Which part?" Her eyes flickered. She didn't answer. And that's when I realized she hadn't read the article. She had seen the reactions, the reposts, the comments, the clients sending messages like, "We had no idea your daughter was so talented." She hadn't read my words. She had read my worth, reflected in the eyes of strangers. We ate in shallow conversation. I answered questions about tour stops. Rachel complimented my earrings. My father muttered about traffic. Mom refilled my wine twice, but it wasn't until dessert that the shift happened. She cut the tart carefully, too carefully, as if afraid of ruining the illusion. When she placed a piece on my plate, she looked up and said, "It doesn't taste like yours. I know, I tried, but I wanted to make something that reminded me of you." The room went still, and for a moment I didn't know what to say. Because for years she'd pretended there was nothing to remember, nothing to miss, and now she was trying to fix that with lemon slices and powdered sugar. I took a bite. It was fine. Technically passable, a little too sweet, crust a bit underbaked, but it was the effort, not the flavor, that hit me. "Thank you," I said, and I meant it. But I also meant, thank you for finally doing something that costs you more than it cost me. When the plates were cleared, Mom pulled out a small envelope. She placed it on the table in front of me, quiet, almost humble. "What's this?" I asked. "A proposal," she said. Rachel sat up straighter. "I talked to someone from the chamber," Mom continued. "There's an event in December, downtown fundraiser, lots of press. They're looking for a chef to headline the dessert spread. I told them about you." "You did?" "I showed them your article." That surprised me. "I thought you didn't read it." "I didn't read every word," she admitted, "but I read the way people looked at you when they did." That sentence. It cracked something I hadn't realized I was still holding, because that had always been the root of it. She didn't need to see me. She needed me to be seen, so she could say she raised something worth watching. I took the envelope, placed it in my bag, and smiled. "Thank you," I said again. This time it wasn't gratitude, it was a warning. I left the dinner without dessert. Not because I didn't want it, but because I'd already served mine. 3 days after the family dinner, I sent a package to my parents' house. No note, no label. Just a matte black envelope, thick like a wedding invite, with one word embossed on the front, 11. Inside was a printed menu, not from the fundraiser Mom had mentioned. From my new restaurant. Yes, my restaurant. It hadn't existed yet when she offered the opportunity, but it existed now, because that same night, after walking out of her dining room, I drove straight to a property I'd been eyeing for months, a converted bookshop with a broken sign and uneven floors, and I signed the lease. I called Marcy the next morning. "I'm doing it," I said. She didn't ask what, she just said, "Finally." The restaurant wasn't big. 12 tables, open kitchen, one window looking out onto a street that still smelled like yesterday's rain and old newspaper. I called it 11. Because sometimes naming something after your lowest moment is how you remind yourself what never to become again. The menu was minimal: 3 desserts, rotated weekly, no substitutions, no build your own, no children's options. We served what we believed in, and people came. They came with stories, quiet ones, women who whispered, "My mother never came to my graduation either." Men who said, "This reminds me of how my grandma used to love me before she forgot who I was." Every tart I plated felt like an act of translation, a way to say what I was never allowed to. So the black envelope wasn't petty. It was a declaration. Inside, behind the menu, was a reservation card, reserved, for the woman who taught me what absence tastes like. Date, Friday 7 p.m., table 11. I didn't expect her to come, but she did. She arrived at 6:54, wearing a navy blazer and the same pearls she used to wear when meeting Rachel's professors. She stood just inside the doorway, scanning the room like she wasn't sure if she belonged. I didn't greet her. I was in the kitchen, plating lemon tartlets with a candied fennel twist. But I watched. I watched as the hostess, who had no idea she was my mother, led her to the corner table beneath the painting of a girl walking away from a table full of empty chairs. Mom sat down slowly, opened the menu, and froze. At the bottom of the page, in tiny cursive print, was a quote: "Some people wait to be invited, others build the room." As she looked up, toward the kitchen, I didn't move. After 15 minutes, she asked to see me. The hostess came back. "Table 11 is requesting the chef." I wiped my hands, untied my apron, and walked to the table. "Hi," I said. She smiled. It was the smile she used when guests were watching. Polished, slightly trembling, 1 second away from breaking. "This place," she said, looking around. "It's elegant." "Thanks." She folded her napkin once, then again. "I wasn't sure if I should come." "You didn't RSVP." She flinched, just slightly. "Is this for the article?" she asked, voice lowered. "Are you still upset about what I said?" "I don't think you remember what you said." She swallowed. "Maybe not word for word." "That's okay," I said. "I do." There was a silence, a long one, the kind that turns people inside out. Finally, she said, "I'm proud of you." I nodded. "I know. I mean it." "I don't need you to mean it," I said, voice calm. "I just needed to know it wouldn't stop me anymore if you didn't." That landed like glass breaking in a quiet room. She looked down, blinked. "I don't know how to fix it." "You don't," I said. "That's not what this is." "Then what is this?" "A seat," I said, "one I made, and you're sitting in it." She didn't touch the tart. She sat there for another few minutes, then stood, folded the napkin again, and said, "The window light is nice. It makes everything look warmer." "It does." She left without hugging me, and I didn't stop her. The next morning, someone posted a photo on Yelp, a quiet shot of table 11, empty, a single untouched plate, a flickering candle behind it. Caption: "Something about this place feels like forgiveness, but sharper." A week after my mother came to the restaurant and left without tasting the tart, we stopped speaking. No calls, no texts, no holiday check-ins, just silence. But it wasn't the aching kind that used to hang in the air after birthdays or graduations she missed. This silence had weight, structure, like a wall finally finished. And behind it, I was building something better. By spring, 11 was on every best small plates list in the region. We had a wait list 3 months long and were invited to headline the city's culinary festival. I didn't hire a PR team. I didn't take a business partner. But I did one thing that felt like closure. I bought the billboard 3 blocks from my parents' house. Black background, white serif letters. Simple. 11 reservations open, but not for everyone. I wasn't being cruel, I was being honest. Rachel called after it went up. "Okay," she said. "That's a little savage." "You think?" "You know she's seen it." "I'm aware." She said, "She doesn't understand why you're still angry." "I'm not," I said. "She's confusing memory with consequence." Rachel was quiet. Then, "She keeps asking what it would take for you to come home." I paused. "Tell her," I said, "I'm not waiting for a table anymore. I run the kitchen now." That summer I hosted a private event. A single table, 10 guests, all women. Each had once been told they were too much, too quiet, not quite right, writers, dancers, a librarian who'd lost her job fighting for banned books. We sat around the table beneath soft lights and passed dishes built from stories. Each course had a name. The starter, overheard apologies. Main, better without permission. And dessert? The final plate I served myself. I placed it in the center of the table, then stood and spoke, only briefly. "This is the tart I made when I stopped asking for space," I said. "The one that tastes like absence and ambition. I call it—" I smiled. Uninvited. The next morning I posted one photo. No face, no caption. Just the tart cracked open, sugar shards scattered like glass across the plate. I don't know what my mother thinks when she sees my name now. In articles, in reviews, on menus, on lips. Maybe she's proud, maybe she's angry. Maybe she still believes this was all about a birthday party. What I know is this: she taught me how to live without invitation, and I taught myself how to live without regret. There's something powerful about building your own table. You don't need to flip the old one. You don't even need to drag up a chair. You just light the candles, plate the truth, and open the door, only to the ones who never made you beg to stay. Sometimes the table you were never invited to teaches you how to build your own, stronger, steadier, and with better lighting. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: you don't have to shout to reclaim your worth. You just have to stop waiting for someone else to name it. Validation from the wrong people is a hungry game, and freedom begins the moment you walk away from that hunger. Maybe you've been the forgotten one too. Maybe your seat was never pulled out, or your name was always misspelled. But I promise, there's something powerful about choosing yourself, even if no one claps when you do. Have you ever had to create your own space because no one gave you one? What did it cost you? And what did it give you? If this story touched something inside you, let me know in the comments, or even just tell me where you're watching from. If it didn't speak to you, I'd love to hear why and where this found you. And hey, if you're still watching this video, hit that subscribe button, because I have more stories to tell, and maybe, just maybe, one of them will sound a little like yours.